Hello, my name is Krystle Young Bowers, and I'm running for Hollywood Council Representative. I'm a member of the Panther Clan, and my mom is Brenda Cypress, my sister is Angel Young, and I'm married to Wilson Bowers from the Bird Clan. So, a little bit about myself. I went to UM to get my bachelor's in English, and then a few years later, I went back to get my master's in biology, again at UM. Shortly after leaving UM, I went to FIU to work on my PhD, but I left after 2 years when I realized I didn't need a PhD for what I wanted to do in my career. Some issues that are important to me within the tribe and in the US politics overall. But the three biggest issues in the tribe for me are climate change, mental health, and voting rights. Climate change is the undeniable fact that CO2 emissions are warming the planet. These CO2 emissions are human-made emissions from fossil fuels. So things like energy use from your house to your car. And scientists across the world agree that it is a major threat to our world and have issued many statements on the best practices to lower emission levels. But many politicians around the world have sowed doubt into many people's minds, mainly because of company propaganda. So one such propaganda campaign that is most famous of all is the Keep America Beautiful campaign ads that included a crying Indian looking out into a sea of garbage, and he had one tear on his cheek fall down. So the point of this ad campaign was to place the blame on the consumer, to convince you that all you had to do was pick up trash and put it in the garbage. But really, this propaganda took away the responsibility from these companies. Keep America Beautiful was funded by Coca-Cola Company and other bottling companies so that they didn't have to pay to reclaim glass bottles. Instead, they used cheap plastic bottles that just help make them richer. So I'm here to tell you climate change is real, and our ancestors have known that for hundreds of years. Because everything is connected, climate change is a global phenomenon. So what one country or company does affects the entire climate. But we need to put more pressure on our state and federally elected officials to protect our future with nature-based solutions. The major voices in the Army Corps of Engineers' ears are pushing for gray infrastructure because they want to make money off of these projects. But we need to be pushing for green infrastructures because the trees protect us better than anything gray infrastructure can do. But our kids deserve a safe place to live when they grow up. I deserve a safe place to live when I get older. At the rate that the U.S. is holding up climate change mitigations is putting everything at risk. Although this past week, the EPA announced sanctions on smokestacks from energy producing plants, they are going to have to reduce their pollution outputs, which is definitely good news for the climate. So while there is still time to act, our federal government is acting very slowly. The global governments are acting very slowly. And like I said, everything is connected. What one country or company does affects the entire world. And this will put everything at risk. Our language and culture and way of life will be in jeopardy as we fight for our lives and for water. So climate change will cause more severe weather, including hotter hot days, and colder cold days, and more frequent intense hurricanes. And climate change affects the most vulnerable communities first. We see that with island and other indigenous communities around the world. They are struggling for water rights right now. And Florida, in general, is a vulnerable community in the United States. Our state is going to be the first ones to experience climate change. We're already experiencing it. We witnessed it last week with the major flooding throughout Hollywood. And those canals along the turnpike, they're not even connected to the major system. And that's because of racism. We were a minority community. They didn't care. They put a turnpike through our reservation and didn't care to connect the canal systems to their major systems. So that's why before, during, and after a major storm, you will see pumps pumping water from those canalways by the turnpike north. And another thing, the Broward County climate officer just admitted a few months ago, Broward County's canal systems would not even be able to withstand a normal rain event in 10 years. Within 10 years, that's going to happen. Let alone a hurricane. It won't even be able to withstand a normal rain event. So we need to prepare for climate change now. We need to prepare for our safety, for our survival, by purchasing land further north in our ancestral lands. We need to reclaim our ancestral lands in Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, just so we have safe holdings for our future generations. So the questions I would want to focus on if I get into office is, how do we make sure our tribe is prepared for climate change? How will our businesses be affected by the change in climate? And what opportunities are there for us to become more resilient as a tribe? So another issue that is close to my heart is mental health issues. My brother had schizophrenia that went untreated, and eventually it killed him. We have begged behavioral health for help, but they wouldn't listen. We all felt powerless to help him. I would work to destigmatize mental health visits and bring back trust to a department that hasn't protected a lot of our tribal members. I know some of our problems with CBH stems from a history where they were sending kids off to these youth homes that were traumatizing them. I've talked to a few guys from when I was a teenager growing up, and they were teens as well, sent off to these youth homes. And they're still feeling the pain and trauma from those experiences there while at those homes. We need to do better for our kids. And a major issue that I'm just starting to be more brave about to come out and to talk to people is hitting kids. We should not be hitting kids. There is no reason to hit any person on this planet, whether they're kids, adult, or elder. But for some reason, people think it's okay to hit kids. And never mind the research that has shown that hitting kids only damages your relationship with them. That kid is a person that deserves safety. Someone hitting them does not give them a safe environment, safe, healthy, and stable environment. Your kid will reach their fullest potential. So, CBH, first and foremost, needs to be built in growing the trust for the ones who need it most. I have a few ideas on how that can be done, and I'm looking for more as well. Now I want to talk about voting rights in our tribe. Our tribe has issues with some tribal members having a bigger voice than others. In our constitution, It states every tribal member is guaranteed an equal political voice. But non-residents aren't able to vote in half of our elections. How is that equal? They can't even vote in half of our election cycles. That makes no sense to me. Gaining the right for non-residents to vote will be the first thing I push for if I get into office. And I want to tell you a little bit of history of disenfranchisement in the United States. So, registering to vote was literally created to keep immigrants from voting in the United States. They made people register to vote because they didn't want immigrants and minorities to vote. So why are we doing that to our people? Why are we requiring our tribal members to register to vote when it is a literal tactic for white men in power to keep immigrants from voting? And Native Americans didn't officially get to vote until 1924. But the federal government left it up to the states to decide the final decision on Native Americans getting to vote in that state. So it wasn't until 40 years later that all Native Americans were able to vote. And even still, there were many hurdles for minorities and our ancestors included to vote. There was poll intimidation and there was literacy tests that people had to take in order to vote. And not to mention, all of these ballots were in English. All lands in North America is native land. We need to decolonize our mindset and realize non-resident and resident shouldn't even be a thing. It's just off reservation and on reservation, because this entire country is our land. We should be able to move freely in these lands without fear of losing our right to vote. And especially when climate change becomes an even bigger concern, you're holding people back from moving to safety for fear of losing their right to vote. So all tribal members should be able to choose which reservation they want to vote for. And that's what I would push for in office. Another issue in our tribe is, how do we divert more power from council? If I get elected, I would support and continue to support the empowerment of our tribal courts. It's amazing how much progress has been made, but I think it's a little bit slow with the tribal courts. Me and my sister recently attended a tribal court session for the first time ever back in January or February. And it was amazing. It was an amazing process. And I would love to see more of that. Now, I want to pivot to politics that affect everyone in the U.S. We are a marginalized community that supports our own downfall. Some of our leaders and even our tribal members in our tribe support Republicans. The Republican Party is responsible for the possible overturn of ICWA. ICWA is the Indian Child Welfare Act. It is meant to keep Native kids in Native families. So, a white family in Texas wanted to adopt a Navajo child. ICWA states that they cannot. And so this couple took it to their state Supreme Court to have that ruling overturned because they wanted a Native baby. So Texas ruled in favor of the white family, But this is a federal law. They had to take it to the federal Supreme Court. And normally, under normal circumstances, it would have been thrown right out. But since Trump elected 3 Republican judges during his tenure as president, they have a supermajority in the Supreme Court. Only the Republican judges voted to allow this case to go forward. Every Democrat said no. But like I said, Republicans are the majority in the Supreme Court right now. So they're allowing this case to go forward. And this case is important for many reasons. First of all, they might start sending our kids to white families again, which is literal cultural genocide. And 2, it strips down our sovereignty, our tribal sovereignty. That is what's going to be next. And to top it off, this case is backed by big oil. The big oil companies are providing a free lawyer to this white family that wants to adopt this kid, because they know that the overturning of ICWA strips down tribal sovereignty and will give them more power on tribal land to extract oil. So Republican rulemakers just support hatred, and they only want power. They restrict critical race theory, otherwise known as CRT, which is just history from the minority point of view. They made laws that does not allow anything to be taught based on race, or if it makes white people feel bad. That's genocide, residential schools, just anything that has to do with us. And our 2 schools are state funded. So, we don't know if that means we won't be able to even teach our culture or history in our own schools anymore. That's, I guess, if we don't get on DeSantis's bad side. But they are also attacking the LGBTQ community. And we have many Two-Spirit people in our tribe. And we should be protecting everybody. So we should not be supporting anything that the Republican Party does for any reason whatsoever. We should be spreading politics of love and equality. Seminoles are a minority group. We are the minorities of the minorities in the U.S. And it won't be long until they outlaw being Native again. It's happened before, so it can happen again. And love is power. We can fill our offices with people who love us, even with our flaws. But we need to fight for a world that includes all kinds of people. People who've been abused, traumatized, neglected, people of color, people with disabilities, people battling mental health symptoms, and our Two-Spirit community. Everyone. Thank you.